All right, guys, my name is Dr. Sharnael Wolverton Sehon. Welcome to our channel. We are so excited to have you here. We are here every Thursday at noon Central. And this week's topic, we're super excited to have a very special guest talk about a very special, important topic, star seeds. And so before we get going on with this, I want to just remind you to go to swiftfire.org, get on the newsletter. You can find out about all of our upcoming shows. There's quite a bit of content on there, books, resources, classes, lots of cool stuff if you want to check that out. And yeah, and while we're watching, if you could please do us a favor, give us some likes, give us some loves, do all the things to help with the algorithms. As you know, we had our channel taken. Sometimes they're still watching. They like to hide us, all those kind of things. So anything that you guys can do to help. If you want to support us in any way, you can also do that too, just right there in the chat. And we do have a membership too. So definitely want to remember, Craig, you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, indeed. It's good to be here as usual. Sorry, as you start talking, get a frog in my throat. Yeah, like I said, we have a membership scheme, which scheme, yeah, that helps with the running costs of the channel. Because and what a lot of people don't realize is the amount of effort and time and cost that goes into getting these shows out there with graphics. So it all helps, and we want to give everyone like a hands-on experience, like you're part of the community. I've said it before, but although we're on the screen talking, we want to get everyone involved. Everyone's got a voice, everyone's equal. No celebrities here. I know I'm a bit of a celebrity, but whatever. But yeah, I just encourage people to join the membership, and I look forward to seeing you soon in some of our events.
Awesome. Well, without further ado, Sherri is new to me. I've seen her name, I've seen her face around. I've watched her on different channels, like hints here that she's going to be in this sphere this year. I've never actually had her on the show. We haven't had her. I've talked to her on the phone a few times and text back and forth, and she's just a delight. You guys are going to really have you're going to be really, really impressed with her character, with who she is, and her positioning with helping children, especially with star seeds. And what I'm going to do, my first question, and right at the beginning here, Sherri, let's just talk about what is a star seed? Like, to you, what is a star seed? And also give us a little background about how you got involved with children and especially star seeds, if you don't mind. And thank you for being with us.
Yeah, well, thank you for that warm introduction, and I'm honored to be a guest on your platform. So thank you for having me. Definitely no celebrity egos here. So maybe Craig, I don't know. He's saying there's a little bit. Yeah. So starseeds, in the interpretation of starseeds, I think is vast. It's multidimensional and it's ever changing. But at the root of it, what it means is that they are enlightened souls to some degree. They have a lot more life experience, whether it's on this planet or other planets. One misconception in the community about starseeds is that they're all galactic, that none of them reside from the Earth, and that is simply not true. There are many inner Earth beings that are here at this time as starseeds to help the planet evolve as well. And I think those are coming, no pun intended, but coming to the surface a lot more now than ever before, especially in my clients that I'm seeing. So starseeds are essentially volunteers that come in that are generally coming from a higher density form, and that are likely and many times already ascended, and they come here in order to help liberate humanity here and help us out of this third density wheel of karma that humanity has been stuck in for thousands and thousands of years. And they are very wise beyond their years. That's where the term old soul comes in. And they, some of them thrive. Some of them are doing really well. But the fact is, many of them have struggled. And the pioneer, Dolores Cannon, who's, one of my idols, if I have such a thing, is her work, because she was a pioneer in the movement of bringing forward information. And one of which was Starseeds, which she called the 3 waves of volunteers. And so I think that that's what we're seeing right now. And many of them have struggled in the past. It's not just the children. People think that I'm excluding an entire generation before, and I'm not. I always talk about how there have been starseeds or waves of volunteers coming in for thousands of years. They just haven't been able to thrive in this environment because of all the corruption and the power grid that they find themselves in, and they don't have a successful mission, so to speak. So that's why we're having a condensed amount of starseeds coming in now, which I call the New Earth children, in order to have more light, and they work together as a collective. So they're much harder to be programmed and brainwashed, and that's what we're seeing right now, and that's why it's so obvious to everybody that there are starseeds. Mm-hmm. So my background is I'm an animal nurse. So I went into the animal field because, my sob story, I was bullied as a kid, moved around a lot. I was kidnapped when I was young, had a lot of traumatic experiences, and I just hated human beings, to be honest with you. I did not like people. I didn't trust anybody. I was also an only child with a teen mom. So, there was a lot of variables in my upbringing that kind of made me shut off from the world and not trust anyone. And so animals saved my life. And so I had a dog when I was a young child. There was a German Shepherd named Chelsea, and that she taught me animal communication, and she taught me to love and to trust. But again, I only trusted the animals. So I was very passionate about animals, and I was going to save the animals of the world, and I was going to work with animals. And so I channeled that through veterinary medicine, because I actually was also fascinated with medicine, and I wanted to be a veterinarian, actually, because I was very fascinated by anatomy and physiology. And so I went into veterinary medicine. I didn't want to be a vet because it was too political. I knew that at a very young age. So I decided I would try out nursing, and I loved it because I could actually do all what I called the fun stuff, all the stuff in the back with the animals, and I felt more of an intimate relationship with them. So I did that for 20 years of my life. My most part of my professional career has been working with animals. So when and in fact, I learned Reiki and energy healing and holistic modalities for animals, because I did work in the ICU for a long time, and it was very hard and very heartbreaking to do that type of work. So I wanted to find a better way to help the animals, because I thought there has to be more than this that we can do for them, because it was heartbreaking, and it's not for everybody to work in that environment. And so I learned energy healing and all various other things, working with crystals and that sort of thing. I also had a child when I was 23. So to me, I was very young and was not ready. Now, nothing compared to my teen mom having me, but I felt very much like a child myself, just barely graduated college. I was working as a nurse, a veterinary nurse, not making that much money. My husband and I were married at the time, but at the time, we were just together for a couple of short years. So it was a life-changing event, needless to say. But I think it was important because I brought in a crystal child, which is one type of starseed, and he cracked open my heart and changed the trajectory of my entire life. And I began to look at the world in a different way. And I thought to myself, I can't be angry at everybody. I need to try to be the change, and I became very spiritual at that point. I be the change you want to see in the world, I lived it and I embodied it, and I really changed everything about myself. And I started wondering, why do we have bullies in the world? Maybe what happened to them? What's their story? Why are they treating me like that? Why are there mean people in the world? There has to be a reason for it. And I started to develop compassion that I didn't have for a long time, that I had towards animals, but not towards people. And I wanted to give them the benefit of the doubt. So I started just to become more open. I started to research. I got into many different authors, and I loved Sylvia Browne back in the day, her brashy self. And it really was life-changing for me. And so slowly over time, I had more children. And then I started working with adults when I got burnt out working at the zoo. I worked at the zoo for 10 years in Washington, D.C., and it was like my dream job. I mean, I can't tell you, I was on cloud 9 euphoria for about 3 years or so, because it was the job that I always wanted, because I really loved the exotics, elephants, in fact, but I wanted to be around the wild animals. I felt some deep connection, more so than to the domestic animals, and this perspective. I wanted to just be around them all the time. And then something shifted, and I just became sad. And I thought, I don't like this anymore. I started to think differently, and I didn't want to work with animals in cages anymore. I didn't think it was right. It started to hurt my soul, and I got burnt out, and I said, I can't do this anymore. So then I started to work with people. There's so much more to the story than that, but that led me on a different path. And so then I started to work more with people, which led to children, and it's led to what I'm doing right now.
Wow.
We have a lot of similarities, all of us. We all have German Shepherds. I have two, but I grew up. I have two. Craig has two, and we grew up. I've always had a German Shepherd like my entire life. My grandparents, my uncle was an MP, military, worked with canine. My son-in-law does too, and so that's interesting. I'm wolf fanatic, love wolves, and I went in to be a vet as well, and then just like what you said, I was there 3 days, and I was like, I changed my major because I couldn't deal with like the car accident stuff, and getting hit by a car, like the trauma. It was too much for my sensitivity, but coming from coming in military and going through the stuff I did, I had the same similar where I just didn't trust, and I was out in the middle of nowhere, and all we had is our animals, and I grew up catching little butterflies, and I was like Snow White with that, and so I really thought I would do that, and so I went into pet therapy. I did work at the zoo for like a day and a half, and then I literally took a lunch and never came back. I felt terrible. I couldn't deal with the cage stuff.
Yeah.
But I went into people, naturopathic medicine. Obviously, eventually, that. So I didn't know that about you. That's very interesting how this stuff. And now here we are working with people and energy. And I foster. Still to this day, I work at several shelters, and we fostered 98 kittens in 4 years, and 4 dogs, and so 4 dogs. We just got one fostered last week. So a German Shepherd, actually another German Shepherd. So Craig, did you jump in here anytime? This is kind of
yeah. I just getting back to your sort of like description of what is a starseed, because I think a lot of people throw these words around, and I think that's a really, really good description you just gave. That like I too, big fan of Dolores Cannon. Her work was just amazing. Sharnael and I have spoken way in the past that, her books, you pick up and there's an energy on the books. There's something about her information which is just otherworldly. And, we're dealing with what's called starseeds. There are, like you say, high-level souls that are incarnating, because we're at such a crucial juncture in our time. It's like the I don't know what you want to call it, the powers that are way beyond our dimension can see that there is a dire need for these high-level souls. I think there's a two-way thing, and correct me if I'm wrong, that yes, it's because there's a need, but also there's a desire with these souls to come in and help. Mm-hmm. And naturally, a lot of them are coming in, and the system is trying to dumb them down. They're trying to medicate them so that they can slot into the matrix without, basically half vegetables. They're diagnosing with all sorts of issues, which aren't issues at all. They're just not. Is it Mary Rodwell who calls them access to what she calls ADHD something? Can you remember what it is?
Oh, I don't know.
Choose to remember, but yeah, she says that it's a higher realm of understanding. Yeah.
Always something higher dimensions is what she calls ADHD. Always, yeah. So someone out there will tell us. But I think that's what it is. And all these kids that are being called, labeled with a disease, they are not disease. They are high-level souls who need training and raising. So yeah, is that what you do? You work with kids and these starseeds? Is that your thing?
Yes. So I do a few different things. So when I decided to leave the zoo and start my own business, I did animal communication for a brief time, but that was really frustrating because 90% of the time, if not more, I was constantly having to tell the owner that the pet's having issues because of your behavior, or is reflecting your energy, and people weren't ready to hear that. And so I just said, you know what, I'm going to do something else. And so I worked with people to try to help them, because I realized they're the ones that really needed the true guidance. So I worked and did energy healing and kind of soul readings that kind of have adapted over the years. And I was able to realize that I had this connection with spirit, the spirit realm, and multidimensional beings, and the angelic realm. And I was able to communicate with them, and they showed me how to do quantum healing that I had never seen before in any classes or textbook. And they said, this is going to be your modality. And I don't mean that in an egotistical way. It's just, they're like, let us teach you what you already know, let us show you. And so I started doing these profound healings. And somehow along the way, I also did hypnobirthing, which I helped over hundreds of couples do with childbirth education, to help them bring in a child in a very safe, calm environment, because childbirth is a whole other avenue we can talk about with Starseeds and why it's so corrupted. And so I help them to have more of a compassionate birth, and with self-hypnosis, relaxation, breathing techniques, etc. And as a result of that, I developed a relationship with a lot of parents. And through that, I started working with children, and a lot of people started coming to me. And part of my soul mission is to, one, change the education system, but also to help assist getting rid of labels. And so I started to get more autistic children, children with Asperger's, the deemed labels, ADHD. And the parents came to me for a spiritual and intuitive perspective on their child, because they were frustrated with the physicians. They didn't want to medicate their child, or their child had been medicated and they were just gone, dissociated, just a shell of themselves, completely numb. And they felt like they lost their child and they wanted their child back. So I somehow found myself working with many different children. And what I discovered is that there is an energetic explanation for every single characteristic that the labeled children have. And I was just blown away, because it wasn't something I asked. I didn't know I was going to do that. And so as I was discovering it, working with each child and their higher self or their spirit team, they were telling me, this is why this is happening. This is why this is happening. Children that have ADHD, this is why they have it. This is what's going on. Asperger's, this is what's going on. This is why they're being attacked. And I thought, this is a groundbreaking information. Why doesn't everybody know about this? This information that they're giving them in these offices, these doctors, is wrong, and it's nefarious. And we have to get this information out there to help these parents navigate through this challenging time, because these new earth children, not only are they evolved in high density, trying to come and shrink themselves essentially into this third density reality, and these meat suit bodies that are so limited by nefarious reasons over time and generations, that their frequency is too high to merge with this body. So there's essentially a battle going between the soul light body and the physical body, and they're trying to integrate and work together, but they short circuit. That's what they would tell me. They're short circuiting. It's almost like they're allergic to this density. And so it translates in a lot of these characteristics that they are now calling or labeling as such. And these children are being falsely medicated, falsely characterized, and falsely labeled with behavioral issues, etc. And so I started working with these children, working with the parents, and I started to see changes in them when we implemented certain things, because now the parent understood, okay, this is why my child is nonverbal. This is why my child won't look at anybody in the eyes. This is why my child can't sit still. This is why my child walks funny. This is why my child talks funny. This is why my child doesn't like to play with toys. And we had explanation for literally everything on the list. And I wanted to help as many people as I could. And so that also turned into the project that I'm working on with my daughter. She came to me before she was born, after I had two sons, and said who she was and that she was coming into this planet. I was going to bring her in. I was going to be her mother, and I was going to help her with a very big mission, and she needed my help. And I said, of course, yes. And she came in, and now we have the Aramis Project, which is named after her, which is the Aramis Creative Learning Center, where we're changing the trajectory of education altogether to cater to Starseeds. And not only Starseeds, but what they're doing, the reason they're coming is to show us where we're going. So they're the pioneers, and now we have to shift the paradigms, break them down and rebuild them. And they're just showing us the way. That's all they're doing. They're showing us what's going to be and how to get there. And I work with the education element and component as well to bring forward learning centers all over the world that are different, that are exactly what they need. And we can get into all of those elements as well. But going back to the labels, we have to stop as a society using those labels because they are false. And if anything, these children have spiritual gifts. They are gifts and unique abilities. And it's a beautiful thing. And unfortunately, the dark side has known that before they were even coming in. They knew that they were coming. They were prepared for it. So they developed these things that you put in the arm and all of these other. I just did a conference where I talked for 45 minutes about all the nefarious things that they do to these starseeds in the womb, before they're even in the womb, and throughout their entire life, in order to suppress their light and disconnect them from their source, their soul, their mission, because they don't want them to be here, because they know that collectively they're here to shift and really aid in the ascension. So they do everything to stop it.
Yeah, I'm of the opinion, and I don't want to get political about this, but like the push of abortion is stopping so many of these coming through, and I think that's by design. I think, like you just mentioned. I mean, again, I don't want to get into the politics of that.
It's not even just that. You could take it one step back. When we had that uprising of SIDS back in the day, do you know what that was? That was the dark entities going in and disconnecting the life force from these children while they were sleeping, so that because they knew what they were here to do in the future, and they stopped it from happening. And because we were so enthralled in that 3D back in the 80s and 90s, it was easy for them to do that. Now it's much harder because we've lifted the vibration of the planet. It doesn't happen as much. Now we're dealing with the adult version of that, but we know what that's from. And so that they were doing this long ago to stop them from even coming in.
Wow.
So, yeah, I mean, water, food, I mean, even like Flintstone vitamins, and, the dyes, the MSG, the lack of minerals, orthomolecular problems. And definitely, we all know that connection with some of those labels with this, although some people would argue that. I can tell you that I worked with tons of people who are in college and never, needing to get into college for whatever reason and never had that thing, get what they need. And then I've personally had to sit there and look at a child that I used to talk to, had interaction with, now nonverbal, in a wheelchair, was athletic, the whole thing, just because they got caught up to go to the schools and stuff. So all of these rules about, you got to do this to get in university, or you this to get even in elementary school now, it's been quite personal for me. And I know a lot of other people that have had to kind of navigate and try to detox and work through some of that. What are some of the big things that you see kind of across the board that are, more, I guess, obvious and or happen more frequently besides this thing? Is there anything that sticks out to you?
You're talking about the negative things that they do to suppress them? Oh, yes. Man, there's so many. Well, starting with the hypnosis through the what I call the television. I can't even say it the other way anymore. The movies, the programming, the conditioning. That's a big one. And it's no accident that every child, has a tablet or a phone or some electronics in front of them these days. It's also the electromagnetic frequencies. It's the chemtrails. It's the water. It's the fluoride. It's the medicine. It's the food. It's the lack of proper nutrition. So it's the cheap, convenient, fake food that they have introduced into society and made it so cheap that and easily available. That's just to name a few, not to mention how they target in the womb. First, they try to traumatize the child before they even come out by traumatizing the mom with the whole childbirth process and unnecessary these things that they get during their pregnancy or the the flu thing. I don't know. I don't want to get taken down. And then the childbirth process itself.
Mm-hmm.
The womb is a portal of energy, and it's a rite of passage when these children are born. And this is something that I learned when I taught hypnobirthing, and I love doing hypnobirthing because I was really passionate about helping women have less traumatic births and taking their power back, because I personally had 3 traumatic births myself. And traumatic is different for everybody. So it's not, I don't need to compare stories with anybody. What's traumatic to me is traumatic to me, and vice versa. It's a personal experience, but I'll tell you, it wasn't pleasant for me. And every experience compounded the next one. The next one was harder. And I had more anxiety because I was worried about the last one and what to expect. And so I definitely didn't bring my children in a positive, loving, quiet, peaceful environment. Because of myself, I was terrified of what was going to happen to me or this or that. And so all my children felt that. I know that coming in, they feel everything. They're so connected to the womb. And then they push in a first world country. It's asinine to me that we are the top of all of the world, one of the top of cesarean rates. They do that on purpose. They do not want the child to go through the portal of the womb, because they know that that's going to be a traumatic birth. They come in through lights. They don't go through the womb, and it's traumatizing for mom and baby. And so that's why we have a high rate of C-sections, not to mention the financial abundance that they gain from that. That's, of course, another thing. And then they scare women with VBACs that, oh, you're not going to be able to birth again after that through the vagina. You have to
do it every time. Yeah, I just wrote that down.
Every movie that you see depicts childbirth in a negative way, and there's actually nothing in our history to show the pre-Roman Catholic period that birth was traumatic. It was regarded as a beautiful ceremony. Women were goddesses. It was a celebration of life. It was not done in a hospital. It was done in a home, surrounded by your family and loved ones. And once the Catholic Church took over, they banned midwives, and they were not allowed, and they would be killed. And so birth became a solitary thing where women were secluded and confined to a room to birth all by themselves. And many of them died, and their children didn't make it. They bled out, etc. And so you can see over generation how that shifted the tone, and it's embedded now in the DNA to childbirth is scary, uncomfortable, painful, traumatic. And so that's another example of how they traumatize baby, the starseeds, in their first introduction to the planet. Then they cut their life source through the umbilical cord before it starts pulsating. That's another thing that they do to disconnect them from the beautiful tree of life of the placenta. And then they introduce the fake milk. It's okay. Women don't need to breastfeed. It's not a big deal. Use this formula. It's easy, and it's not. And children are having issues with it from the time they're babies. They're colicky, etc. So there's so many things designed in this world, in this environment, for them not to thrive.
And not to mention some of the stuff that they give them right away when they're born, like including like ones that you get if you're going to have sexual intercourse, which obviously no baby just fresh out of the oven is going to be doing anything anytime soon with that. And so that's interesting. I was going to ask about the C-section thing for sure. So I do a lot with energy scalar, and usually when we test people, we can see they may be like a higher consciousness of like 300 or 400 before they come, but they almost every time drop to like 100 or even lower in the birth process, and then they have to kind of climb their way up, and hopefully they do. Sometimes they don't, but most people, that it's interesting because that you're saying all this, because that it's proven. I mean, you could test that in measurement that it affects their consciousness right away. They can come in like brilliant, go low, and then they really have to, work to evolve through that. But keep going.
Yeah, and then you throw I mean, this is all done before they even go into the school system, and then it's like a whole other set of programming, manipulation, lie, control. And I talked I've talked about this a few times, but one of the revelations that I learned through my children's sessions is that the children are telling me that they can feel a negative grid, energetic, manipulative grid, negative grid that's placed around the schools buildings, the public school buildings all over the world, nefariously, to suppress their vibration the moment they walk on campus. And the new earth children are feeling it, and they are screaming and crying and kicking as soon as they come on the property. And the moms are like, what's wrong with my child? And I was surprised when I learned the answer to that the first time. But then I heard it so many times, it has to be true, because the kids are telling me that this is a designed prison system for children. And once they go in, they don't come out the same, and they are programmed, listen to teacher. There's a hierarchy structure. It's all about competition. It's not about believing in yourself. There's no imagination. It's follow the person in front of you. And if you speak out or do anything different, there's something wrong with you. You're a bad kid. You're in trouble. Go in this class with the special kids. The fluorescent lighting, everything, every single component designed within the school system is nefarious, even down to the word school. School is just an anagram for louche, so they are using the energy from our children and sucking the life force out of them while they're in school, and they're feeding grounds. Schools are feeding grounds energetically for the dark system. And there's no wonder that most children can't stand being there and innately know something is wrong, and don't want to go and participate in a lot of that. A lot of children tell me that they don't want to speak our words, and the reason there are nonverbal children is because they know that there's curses, and our words are designed in a way to summon dark entities, and they will not participate in that. They are too high vibrational, so they just refuse to speak altogether. They're not going to use our words. Think about the word ball. The children use the word ball more than probably any other word, because they're outside. Let's play ball. Let's go catch the ball. Let's kick the ball around. Ball, ball, ball. All they're doing is saying ball over and over. Right. So they are worshiping without realizing it, a negative.
Yeah.
You see how that's just one example of millions I can give you that I've learned working with hundreds and hundreds of children all over the world, not to mention adult clients in the thousands all over the world that tell me about their experience when they were children. And it's mind-blowing. But the good news is that these New Earth children are different. They're markedly different, and they are almost untouchable in the sense that, and that's actually the word that they've given me. They are so protected, so divinely protected, so different. Their light is so bright. The frequency is so high. When you talk about 300 and 400, I'm telling you that they're coming in 800, 900 to 1,000. Their frequency, their hertz that they're vibrating is off the charts. You can't even probably record it. And that's why some of the physical bodies are having a little bit of a hard time acclimating. So they actually starseeds have to integrate not only in the womb, but there are etherical pregnancies where the mother and the soul merge together energetically first for sometimes 9 months to a year before the child even is conceived, because the child's vibration is so high that they have to merge slowly and get the mom used to it. Otherwise, the reason for that is the mother would have a miscarriage. And that happens. And a lot of the Starseeds parents have had 1-2 miscarriages, if not more, or had a really difficult time having their child as a result of the energy coming through is so strong. And then these little vulnerable bodies, when they're babies, can't hold that energy either, because at the end of the day, we have still been carbon based, and we're slowly switching over to crystalline and increasing in density. So our bodies are now able to hold more light, which is why more starseeds are coming through, because they're able to get in. Whereas before, their frequency that they were going to come in on was too strong, that the body wouldn't be able to integrate together at all. So that's a good sign too, that the earth has risen up enough in frequency that the children can now come through, and they are divinely protected at this point. And many of those things that we mentioned before don't really affect them as much as previous generations of starseeds.
Wow, and that is so good to hear. And certainly as adults who were becoming increasingly aware of this, I mean, obviously, again, reflecting back on the 3 waves of volunteers, we are a part of that, these waves that are coming in. Mm-hmm. I think, if I remember rightly, our sort of generation will be around the 2nd wave, and our kids' generations will be the 3rd wave, if I've got that right. And these are the ones who are going to, I think our assignment is to kind of take down the matrix, the structures, and these guys are going to come in and they're going to rebuild like this whole new earth and build on what we've done. And the more we do the inner work, the more we heal ourselves, the more we're giving them a chance. And I see it in my own children. Like you said, my youngest daughter, she's 10 on Tuesday, and she just can't stand going to school. She hates it. She cries like, I don't want to go. But what her thing is, she wants to go and ride her horses. She loves her pony. That's all she wants to do, and she's brilliant at it. For a 10-year-old, she's been doing it for a couple of years now, and that's all she wants to do. And go down to the stables and just loves just grooming him and looking after him. And I can see it in my own children, and how upset she gets that she has to go to school every day in that system. I mean, don't get me wrong, I know we've all been there and stuff, but there's something different about these kids that are coming in, which is very noticeable.
Yeah. And a big part of their mission is to break down these paradigms, because we don't actually need to be in a system of schooling for 6 to 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, because all it is a programming mechanism to funnel children first to disconnect themselves from their higher spirit and lose themselves, become programmed, and funnel them out into the second system, which is the slave system that we're all in, with work and finances and stress and survival of the fittest, basically. And so what is changing and what I am creating is a system, or not a system, we don't want to use this word system, an educational platform for children to thrive. And everything is changing. And what I'm creating is, there's no grades, there's no levels, no hierarchies, no competition, no testing, none of that. It's the children get to come into a safe space and learn in a way that's suitable for them, putting various ages of groups together of ages so that they can work together and learn the fundamentals and be outside with the horses and the farm animals and garden and connect to the earth and take classes on the energy body and Reiki and healing yourself and tapping into your emotional energy and recognizing that we're energetic beings. And what does that mean? And how do our emotions affect our body? And if you teach children that, they get it. I teach children Reiki, tapping, muscle testing, how to use crystals, how to ground, how to connect. And on all of our mentors do the same. And you could see them developing this beautiful persona of strength and empowerment, that they maintain their compassion and empathy for others. And when you connect them to the animals, they have fun and they want to learn. And that's where I see the future of education going. It's not just me and the Aramis centers. They're popping up all over the world, so that children such as your daughter and my children who hate school will say, I want to go to Aramis centers. I want to go learn, because they're having fun. There's no structure, no systematic, no programming. It's about them deciding what they want to learn, when they want to learn it, how they want to learn it, and not in a prison, in outdoors, in nature. That's what they need. And that's where we're headed. So your daughter is a pioneer.
I was saying it. Can I come? Can I attend?
I go to school. Let's do it.
Oh, yeah.
So where did Aramis, you said Aramis, where did that come from?
So like I mentioned, my daughter came to me when I was young. When I was I have 3 children. So my youngest came at 20. My oldest, came when I was 23, and changed the trajectory of everything. Like I mentioned, then I had Skylar. He's now 10, and he shifted me in another. Each one of them shifted me in some profound way. But when about 2 years or so before Aramis came, which is my daughter, Her soul came to me and said that she was going to come here and she needed help on a mission. And she is asking for my guidance and help and assistance. And I agreed. And it wasn't until she was not much older, till she was like 3 or so, I realized, oh, okay, this is what we're going to do together. And then I get more information as we go. So the Aramis Centers and the nonprofit Aramis Collective is named after her, because this is her legacy. And now I know that the education platform that we're building is her soul's mission. I am just facilitating it. I'm the catalyst. Like Craig said, the indigos and this first and second wave of volunteers, we're an integral part in this. Like, let's not forget about us. Like, we're important too. But the children, what they do is they're opening up our minds. They're asking the right questions. They're saying, Mommy, why does it have to be done this way? And you have to think about it and say, gosh, we've always been doing it this way. No longer can we say, because I said so, because my mom told me I have to do it. All of those paradigms are breaking down, and the children are making the adults. They're waking the adults up and making us rethink everything. And they're little rebels, and they're leaders, and they're innovators, and they're architects of the new world, and they're compassionate beyond explanation. But what they need, though, is our support and our guidance as adults to fight for them, to advocate for them. And as everything collapses, which it is now, and we're fighting for them, and we're talking about it like you and I are, like we are right now, and educating others and waking other people up, then we pave the way so that they can come in and we can help them rebuild through their vision and support them, so that then they can take it on and generations that follow can carry it forward. And so Aramis is really her legend, not mine. I'm just getting it ready for her, I think, is my mission.
Brilliant. So good. I find it thrilling. Sorry, Sharnael, go on.
I don't know. I was just curious, what does Aramis mean? Do you have the definition or the meaning?
So the Aramis is her. It doesn't necessarily have a meaning. I did an interview with somebody this morning who said that she looked it up and it's the promise of God, but it's actually spelled differently. So I don't actually think that's correct, although maybe it is on some level. That the name Aramis came to us through my husband, who I believe the two of them are soulmates to some degree. They're connected, very connected. And, sometimes when we come in, it's a multi-generational contract that we have. And so his contract is to support me, but to support her. They're connected. And she's part of the Artemis group. But he had a dream that his daughter wanted the name Aramis. And the interesting story behind that is I realized many years later that she is connected to the Artemis group, meaning the soul fractal or element of Artemis, who's come back. And there's many of them. She's not the only one. There's a group called the Artemis group spread out all over the world that are girls, that are women, young women that are bringing back the divine feminine. But they are a very spirited group, and they are the future leaders and doing big projects. They will do big projects in the world. So Aramis is a leg. It's a, how do you say that? Instead of using the word Artemis, we changed it to Aramis on a soul level without realizing it, to start using the term Aramis to be a leg off of Artemis, and that will be known for children and education. So it was much bigger than we realized, than a dream. But it doesn't necessarily have a meaning that I know of. It's what it stands for.
Not in this dimension, anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. You said something before that just made me think, because we've done a similar show previously with Abby Lynn and Heidi Park, talking about a similar thing. But and I mentioned on that I do some kind of youth work in what's known as the Army Cadets. It's ages 12 and up to 18, and so I'm in there with a lot of youth. Mm-hmm. And what I'm finding is a lot of them are deemed as troublemakers, rebellious, and a lot of parents send their kids, because it's the army and it's kind of military orientated. Kids that just are uncontrollable, they'll send them in and say, please help us, and that's not what we're about, but we'll accept anyone, It's a brilliant organization. But what I'm finding is these kids are just frustrated with the system they're in. They're frustrated, and they're not bad kids. They're rebellious against what is trying to be put on them. So as soon as you show them a bit of purpose, like, for example, I mean, they're not loaded, but we give them weapons to take apart and put together and stuff, like a rifle, and they love it, and they find something or their purpose, and they're not bad. They're totally creative. They've found like an inner peace in these situations, and I think again it's the system that we've put on kids is if they don't fit this very narrow, viewpoint of how we expect kids should be, we'll beat them into submission, and it's wrong. It's absolutely wrong, and I'm all for finding those kind of known troublemakers, the rebellious ones. I love getting alongside them and like figuring out what makes them tick and putting them in something that they're going to enjoy, and it changes them completely. It really does.
Yeah, well, they need to channel that bottled up energy, their life force in some way. And when they're feeling disrespected and unheard, and they're saying, why doesn't everyone else see that there's something wrong with this? But everyone around them is programmed. But listen, they're strong. They are strong beings that volunteer to come here to be that light around all of these people that are unawakened, to awaken them, to shake people in, like, don't you see what I see? But the system is so corrupt, and it has been for so long, that they are ushered quickly by design into these programs to break them of it. And then they lose their light and they become severely depressed, suicidal, etc., on meds, or they numb themselves with drugs and alcohol. And again, that's part of the dark system. Like, let's distract them. The entire element of competitive sports, movies, all of it is a distraction to keep us occupied, to keep us from connecting, to keep us from looking up at the stars and learning what's important. If they keep us occupied and drunk all the time and entertained with a plethora of things, then we'll never find our way because we're not connecting and communicating with each other. And another big nefarious agenda is causing everybody to divide. In every element of life there's division in every aspect of life. They're constantly trying to divide everyone through religion, through politics, through gender. I mean, you name it. There's a million examples that we can give, and it's all about fighting, keeping us in angry and fear mode and not connecting with one another. Because if we hate each other, then we will not find things that connect us. We will not work together. We won't build bridges. They're broken down. And that's one of the things these children are here to do. They don't like conflict. They don't want to fight. They don't align with that. They don't resonate with that. If anything, they want to work together and build those bridges back. We're repairing, we're healing the Mother Earth, and the children are helping us to do that. But unfortunately, the adults have had a very difficult time paving the way and getting things ready for these children to come in. And we need to commend and respect and value their contribution and how much they've struggled, especially those that didn't make it, that took their own lives, or their lives were taken from them without their consent. We have to honor everybody that's a part of this, because there are an infinite amount of souls guiding us and a part of this, because we are part of the collective consciousness. And those that are of the light, that haven't turned their back on humanity, are innately good. They're just misguided. They're programmed. They're just asleep. And we are trying so desperately at this time to break them out of that spell, that hypnosis that they're in. And unfortunately, it's a rocky period of time right now, because there's just the innate response from people is to fight. I'm better than you. It's ego. That's a third density construct. Now, I'm not saying that when we get to fifth density, there will be no ego, but it will be different. There is a pendulum. There is an ability to control the shadow side. Everyone has the shadow side. Doesn't matter who you are. I have a shadow side. You have a shadow side. It's all about being in control of it. The more we are aligned with our higher purpose, our light, our right brain, our intuitive part of us, our third eye, we are in control of the nemesis, which is our ego. But the ego is also important because it's the thriving element of us. It's what makes us, it's our primal human part of us that keeps us alive, that keeps the inspiration and the motivation going. And we need that. But unfortunately, this third density has become so egocentric and materialistic and power hungry that majority of the population has, the pendulum has swung more to egocentric service to self mentality, that they have lost their compassion, because the more you're egocentric, the less compassion that you have. And it's clear among the groups right now, those that are fighting with everybody, they're fighting their ego right now. Those that are choosing to stay away and not fight, they're on the side of compassion and neutrality and balance. And so it's an interesting energy right now to navigate.
A lot in that you've just said. A lot for me personally, and all the lessons that many of us are learning and going through. I find it interesting how kind of on a global scale, how these people are coming in with compassion and with love and a sense of equality and sense of oneness. And it's almost as if the powers that were know this, because they have twisted and manipulated that into this kind of social justice warrior type. Again, it's like egoic compassion almost. It's like, yes, they want equality, but they're oppressive about it, and they're still trying to maintain control even in those arenas. And it takes a lot of discernment to figure out, yes, we want an equal world. I don't care about I don't care about your sexuality. We're all one. Or I don't care about your gender and all this kind of. There is no fight there, but they're making it into another fight. And how would you teach kids about this? How would you sort of express this to children who kind of so they don't get sucked into that?
Yeah, it's a really important topic right now, Craig, and I'm glad you brought this up, because there's always a dark agenda that underlines the positive one. They're always going to come up with something to combat our light, right? Our power, our innate power. I'm talking the good power, our ability to create and co-create and love one another in unity. They're going to do everything they can to distract and bring us back down. And that is where we are right now with the woke versus awake agenda.
Yes.
And the woke agenda is the nefarious timeline. It's the nefarious programming. So what they're trying to do is take our awake philosophy, which all that means in simple terms is to be liberated, to use discernment, to go within, to trust yourself, to recognize that we are God. God is within us. God is within all of us. We're all equal. We all have superpowers. We're all beautiful, sovereign, liberated beings of light that all want to just come here and co-create and live, and yes, have challenges, but work together for the solutions. And so that's all about what awake means, and loving whatever that looks like for everyone. And if you love men, women love women, whatever, it doesn't matter. It's all about a high frequency and connection. And that is what it means to be awake, but using discernment and not giving your power away to false idols, to pastors and priests, the whole thing, the whole nine, to celebrities, even people who think they're celebrities, on these platforms right now. Like, you're giving your power away from one to another, and they don't realize it. And I think this is a big part of the ascension right now, is the universe is trying to see how individually we are responding to our empowerment. Are we taking our power back? And the answer is no for a lot of people. If they continue to fight one another, and they continue to take sides, and they continue to give their power away and idolize someone else because they seemingly have something that they don't have. But the reality is, if you just turn all that out and you connect with your light, and you recognize that you are just as powerful, your gifts will come. And guess what? You're going to get more information than you ever wanted, that anyone else could ever provide for you. You can get yourself. That's being awake. That's what I tried to model for the children. Being woke agenda is the exact opposite. It's still giving your power away. It's idolizing false prophecies, agendas. We're going to be saved. And they're manipulating these children with the instead of loving each other and not worrying about sexuality, it's now let's confuse the children. Not only are we confused about, am I a boy or a girl, but maybe I'm a cat. Maybe I'm going into school and asking for litter boxes in my classroom because I identify as a cat. They're confusing the shit out of these children.
Yeah, literally.
And they literally are. And they're making them warriors to a fault, where they're rebellious against their parents. Parents are bad now. Family unit is bad. Divorce is good. Blended families are good.
Yeah.
Talk back. Sexualizing these children. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And that's not woke. That's just transferring your power from one place to another and will not move us forward. If anything, it's moving us back and causing a ripple of divide within the community. And all that's doing is feeding into their dark agenda, and they're winning. They're still winning. And I just want to point out that a lot of the woke community are non-player characters, and this gets people like feeling like, oh, this is too woo-woo for me. Don't talk about that, Sherri.
I get it.
There are a lot of soulless beings and clones and etc. on this planet that are here to fuck with us and to push the woke agenda. They're not even human. They're not even, there's no soul in there. So of course they're going to be extreme. Those are the ones that you see on the TV that you're like, you just can't comprehend what they're doing because they're not even in there. There's nothing in there. There's no, but the vessel is being controlled by something else. And unfortunately, our children are being influenced by those empty vessels. So how do I work with children? I teach them every single time I work with them, and in my own, to always maintain your power. Never give your power away. You are everything that you need to be. You are your own superhero. You listen to that voice inside of you always, and don't let somebody take your power. Don't give your power away. Connect with the earth. Ground yourself. Release anxiety through breath. Teach them how to do it themselves so that they're not relying on pills and other methods to numb themselves. Teach them that our emotions are marker points that let our soul know what our human experience is and how to navigate through it. So sometimes anger is okay, but it's about being mindful about it, recognizing the emotion and then letting it flow through. That's what fifth density is about. We're not going to go to fifth density and suddenly we're not angry ever. We're not sad. Mm-hmm. We're still going to have the same experiences, but we're going to be able to channel that energy much faster. It comes in, oh, I'm angry. Okay, I got that experience. I know I learned the lesson from it. Now let's move on. Mm-hmm. And that's where we're headed. So it's all about teaching the children that now, so that they maintain balance, integrity, compassion. Teach them to be kind to one another. Teach them how to stand up to bullies. And that I'm big on bullies because I was bullied. I get really passionate about working with bullies and how to navigate through that. And really, I tell people, get out of the loop. Get out of this loop of repetition of giving your power away and take their power back. Take your power back by not fueling into their bully, their behavior. Because the more we react to it, the more they do to us. And if we just stop it and say, I will not engage, and you don't fight back. And I'm not saying let somebody attack you. I'm just saying in general with energy and what we're dealing with right now with bullies that don't stop in grade school, by the way. They're adults too. They go all the way up in age. And you just take your power back and you stop it before it gets out of control. And so there are a lot of different ways that I work with children and young adults, but it's really about finding your passion and your purpose and not being distracted and giving into these false narratives because they're part of the dark agenda and we're moving away from that.
Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah.
I'm just been reading a few books right now. One of them is The Rules of Estrangement, and the stats right now for even parents being separated from their children is the highest it's ever been because of like the TikTok programming and this whole I have to make a boundary kind of thing, whether no matter who it is, whether you're kids or adults. I'm all about boundaries, but what they're teaching a lot of times, I'm not saying every time, is that the boundary is, I'm just going to cut you off, ghost you, block you, whatever. And I'm not saying that doesn't need to happen, but
cancel culture. Yeah.
But what's missing from the equation is working things out, talking things through, sitting down in a healthy conversation and saying, this is how I feel, this is how it affected me, this is what's going on, let me hear your version, and actually having this like dance of evolvement and growth through a hard situation to come out better in the end, instead of like, no, I had to make a boundary, I'm cutting everyone off, see you later, never see you again, or what have you. And then you're right, the pitting against, with these high stats, it's gender, it's black and white. If we have up, down, left, right, black, white, him, her, all the stuff, these divides will stop the ascension timeline that we're all looking for. It keeps us from being able to move up because the 3D is very, very divided. And the more that we come together and be able to not necessarily like accept, as in like just go ahead and let everybody do whatever, even if it's bad kind of deal, not like accept, but you know, I guess allow or just love people literally unconditionally where they're at, even if it's from afar. You know, if you've tried to work things out and it doesn't work, then I'm not saying stay in an unhealthy situation, but I think that piece is missing. That whole like teaching people. That I would sit down with my kids if they're having a thing and be like, y'all are coming in a room, you're going to sit down, I'll sit here, and we're going to work this out. It wasn't ever like, you know, now with technology, it's like, we're out of here, bounce, block, you know, block the phone, block all the social media, and you could just vanish. And so yeah, but we're coming up on the hour. As a final, like what would, number one, how would you even identify if you're a parent? How would you identify like, okay, this is obviously a star seed? And number two, what would be a word of encouragement to someone who is raising a star seed in this season of, you know, just some basics, a couple, you know, what would you leave with? And then please tell us how we can find you and where people can see your work and engage with you more or contact you. I know you do personal sessions, you do speaking engagements, you know, there's all kinds of things that you do. I'd really want to plug people in to your service to be able to get that support if this is something that they're feeling they need to or this opportunity is here, you know. So go ahead.
Yeah. So, you know, if you're a parent or a grandparent or a caretaker right now, and you have a child or maybe even a teen, and you're noticing that, you know, they think differently than other children. They think outside the box. They don't necessarily go along with the norm or the narrative. They question things. They have leadership qualities, and or maybe they're a little bit more reserved and introverted, yet very wise beyond their years. They think outside the box. They seem to have like so much compassion oozing out of them. You know, they seem markedly different than anything you've ever seen before. They're forward thinkers. They talk about God sometimes and spirituality, and they some of them have extreme psychic abilities where they tell their parents about their past lives and the spirits that they see in their room. And so there's different variations of starseed. So just because your child doesn't talk about their psychic abilities does not mean that they're not a starseed. So there are variations to that, but likely, really and truly, a majority of the population since around 2012 that has come into the planet, they're starseeds. And about the 90s to 2012, it's probably a good 70%. So good. There's a good possibility that majority of the people watching this, and the fact that they're even attracted to watching this show, they themselves are likely a starseed, and their child or grandchild is also a starseed. So how you can support them is following a few fundamentals. One, we need to look at them as an individual sovereign being. And just because you're the parent or the grandparent doesn't mean that you own them. And I'm not talking about the woke agenda that's convincing children that they don't need to listen to their parents anymore and they can just go around them and go to the school system. And, you know, I'm not talking about that. What I'm talking about is recognizing that you signed up to be their caregiver, to be their love, to support them, to love them, to guide them, to nourish them, but recognize that they are individuals, and we can't make them go down the path that we think necessarily is best for them, because perhaps they have a mission that you have know nothing about, and maybe you don't understand it at this time. So we need to allow them to be who they are authentically themselves, and not try to change them, not try to make decisions for them, and listen to them. The number one thing that I get from children that they ask me is they just want somebody to listen, because we unfortunately as a society have been trained to disrespect them in the sense that because they're children, they don't know anything, and we talk down to them, and they need to listen to they need to listen to their adults, and they're not given the opportunity to speak their mind, when in reality right now they have more to say than ever, and it's important information. There are clues, and they are tapping into their higher wisdom, and they need to get this information out in whichever way that they're able to relay based on their age. And so it's about letting them be who they are, and allowing them to thrive, and introducing them to spirituality, and not religion, but spirituality. So teaching them they're multidimensional beings, that they have a light body, that the earth is a beautiful living being, and how can we respect the earth and animals, and how do we ground and connect ourselves, teach them about energy, teach them about their emotions, and all the things that we incorporate into our learning centers. But they need that support from mom and dad and their family from the beginning. They need to feel safe. They need to feel comfortable, instead of forcing them to do things that they don't want to do. They want to feel empowered by you giving them choices. So it's a whole different wave of parenting that many are not ready for, and a lot of the older generations are highly against, because they think that they're a bunch of brats running around and they're not supervised. But we want to create boundaries. So that's important as well. So I don't have a lot of time to get into it. This is a whole other hour we could get into. So I think that that's kind of a good starting point. As far as getting a hold of me, we have Aramis Creative Learning Center. That is our main website that has all of our virtual classes. We've been running virtual classes for several years now. We have 25, 30 mentors that coach children and offer these classes in a variety of subjects. There's countless subjects that we offer, many metaphysical, some are mindfulness, math, and spiritual science, and anything you can think of. And every month we add different varieties of classes. So I highly recommend anybody that's interested to check it out for their children or grandchildren. But we also recently started offering adult sessions, energy sessions, healing, and classes. So the adults can also learn what the children are learning, because they're asking for it. They say, I want to know what they're learning. I want to learn some more too. We also have a cartoon animation series that has about 16 episodes that I have I began about a year and a half ago, and it's short animation cartoons for children to watch, learning spiritual topics that I believe that is really important. And so those are on YouTube under my YouTube channel, but also Divinely Guided Children Media. We also have children's books that are modeled from the animation. I do one-on-one sessions with adults and children. And yeah, I mean, there's so much more, but I think that's probably enough for right now.
You're working really hard.
Yeah. There's never a dull moment, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. That's amazing.
Well, I think that's amazing. And we are out of time, but I really, really encourage everybody who's watching to please do plug in and get some sessions, get some materials, get educated, get informed, and look into what she's doing, what they're doing, and really see how you can be supported as an adult, or even get your children involved with, these cartoons. I didn't even know that you did any of this. So this is like kind of overwhelming me. And I'm like excited in a good way to like jump in and kind of see what I can pick and choose and get out of it. I've already gotten so much out of this personally myself.
Me too. I did.
On my end. Yes. So
it was such a pleasure to come on with you guys. Thank you for having me. And I really enjoyed it myself. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for all you're doing. It's deeply appreciated. It's a big topic. And I personally, certainly as a parent, I'm extremely grateful for people like yourselves who are doing this kind of work and helping me as a parent as well to understand how to deal with these kids. And yeah, I'm super grateful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, very much. So how can we get in touch with you, Craig? And then we're going to wrap up here.
You can find me on Facebook. I'm in a band, Sehon. Connect with us there. Go and have a listen if it's your thing. But yeah, the usual socials, that kind of thing. I guess I'm on Twitter, but I don't know. I just like Elon Musk and like to see what he's up to.
Yes. And your channel. Don't forget about your channel.
Oh yeah, I've got I assume it'll be in the links or whatever. I've got a meditation music, high frequency vibing, sort of ethereal soundscapes that I love doing. Honestly, I do it because I enjoy it, and I put it out there, and it's kind of done quite well. But I'm aiming for 1,000 subscribers So if people would like to subscribe to the channel, I'd be really, really grateful. Thank you very much.
Awesome. All right.
That.
All right. And you guys can find me at swiftfire.org. Of course, I'm on Instagram, Facebook, all the platforms, Twitter, Telegram, all the things. Just go to Dr. Sharnael and or swiftfire.org and you can find us. But we are here every Thursday at noon Central for our show. And we look forward to having you back next week. We're going to have another fun topic. I'm not going to go into what it is because it's kind of a secret, but it's going to be exciting and fun. And I can't wait to see all you guys again. Thank you for all your beautiful comments and everything that you guys done. Please do share, comment, do everything you can to help with the algorithm. That really helps us out because they really like to hide us. And we want to make sure this information goes out. For me, what I'm seeing with the people that I work with a lot of parents. I do work with kids sometimes, but mostly parents. And the stuff that's going on in the homes right now and the stuff that the parents are going through dealing with, not just children, but with each other, with just the life things, just trying to survive right now is really tough. So if people can have this information to help better equip themselves and or their children, you never know who sharing this and getting it out is going to help spark some sort of hope and encouragement and to be more equipped to do what we need to do while we're here, because obviously we want to grow. We choose to ascend. We choose to raise our consciousness and to help as a collective. And it all starts with working with ourselves individually. So definitely do check that out. Love you guys so much. Appreciate everybody being here today. And we will see you guys next week. See you later.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.